Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Good morning. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome. We're glad you're here. We want to make sure that everyone has a prayer book. The prayer book says Mishkan Tefillah on the cover. If you have a book like that, will you raise it high over your head like Rabbi Timoner is doing? Yes, look around. Those are the books you need. You might find other books. Don't be tempted now. You'll need them later. You can put them down now. Thank you very much. Very good. Thank you, people in the front. If you need a prayer book, because you can't find a book like that, please raise your empty hand. Raise it high so one of our greeters in the back can see it. And I see some hands raised right over here. Thank you, right over here. Keep your hands raised so that we can come bring you a prayer book. And as those are coming around, we continue singing together. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Welcome. Sing it with me. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. These prayer books open from right to left because they are mostly in Hebrew. And we open them now to page 192. Look in the lower right-hand corner for page 192. Again, opening from right to left. And if you're looking and see two numbers in the lower right, we'll be referring to the numbers in brackets throughout the service. So if you have a version with two numbers in the lower right, look at the number within the brackets, page 192. In the middle of that page, you'll see words in blue, Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu. Again, page 192 in the lower right. Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu Alecha Yaakov. Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu. Let's try it together. Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu. Sing it louder. Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu. Vani berov chastecha avo veitecha. אשכח אל קודשך ביראתך מה טובו. You got it. מה טובו. And you're singing it so beautifully. מה טובו. Four more times, just like that. מה טובו. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu. The middle of 192. Vani tefilati lecha, Adonai et ratzon, Elohim berov chasdecha. Haneni be'emet yishecha. Ma tovu, ma tovu, ma tovu, ma tovu.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Let's try that again. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome, everyone. So good to be with you on this Shabbat morning. It is a glorious day outside, and it's also a glorious day inside. And so glad to be in this beautiful sanctuary with all of you. I want you all to know, even if you've never been to a synagogue before, or maybe this is just your second time in a synagogue ever, or maybe this is the first time you've been in this synagogue, I want you to know that you are welcome here. You belong here. We are glad you are here. And I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do. So this book is called a Theodore prayer book, and we're mostly going to be praying in Hebrew. And what's important about that for you to know, if in case you're not a fluent Hebrew reader or prayer, is that the transliteration is right next to the Hebrew. Every single syllable of every single word is there. You can follow along with us in every prayer, and we invite you to do that if you want to. And below the Hebrew, you can find the English translation to see what are we saying in the prayers. On the left page, in most cases, what you'll find are interpretations of the prayers. The idea being that these prayers were written a long time ago, and sometimes the language they use, not just Hebrew, but like the ideas, the words, the concepts that they're using are hard for us to relate to. And so contemporary people have written ways in to the idea of the prayer. And the reason that's important, and the reason I'm telling you about that, is because you might come to this and think like, oh, well, this isn't my place. I'm just watching. They're doing something up here, and I'm a spectator. I'm in the audience. But you're going to see today you're not in the audience. You're actually part of what's happening. And we actually need you to be part of what's happening, because we feel like we're doing something really important here, and we want you in it with us. So let me tell you what this important thing is that we're doing. This important thing is that we're doing is this brilliant inheritance that's called Shabbat. So a long time ago, our ancestors realized that if a day a week was not set aside as different from the other days, well, then people would work themselves to death. People would never, ever take care of themselves. They wouldn't have a break for their bodies or their minds or their spirits. And they might even forget what their life was about. They might think that they were totally defined by what work they did in the world. And they might think that that's all of the importance or value they had. They might lose track of who they really were. And so if we set a day aside once a week, we, first of all, get a break. We get a little vacation every 7 days. We put down the work of the world. So by the way, if you have a device in your pocket that reminds you of the work of the world, or just even of the busyness out there, or might ring or beep or buzz or anything, turn it off. Turn it off. You don't need it. This next bit of time is a vacation from all of that. Anybody trying to poke you and say like, hey, you didn't respond to my text. Hey, there's this cool thing happening somewhere on TikTok. Did you see it? 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 Put it away. You don't need that right now. Instead, we're taking a day to remember who we really are, what's actually important in life, which is beyond the work of the world. It's beyond all the buzz and rush and running and controlling and doing and fixing and making. It's beyond all that. We have an aspect of our being that transcends all of that. And we're getting in touch with that aspect of our being, the part of us that says, wow, I'm alive. And I won't be alive forever, but I am alive right now, and that's awesome. The part of us that says like, gosh, it's a glorious day. Did you see the leaves on the trees? Did you see the clouds in the sky? Did you feel the air on your skin? Wow, I have a heart that can feel. I'm alive. It feels amazing to be alive. That part of us that gets neglected most of the time. This day is about that part of us. And so that's why we want you in it with us, because we want you to have that experience that uplifts you, that reminds you, oh yeah, something holy is at work here. Something beautiful, something magnificent. That's what we're doing. Now, as we go along, most of our prayers are going to talk about God. And maybe you're somebody who loves to pray to God. And you're like, yeah, this is my element. I can do this. I'm all about this. I know how to do this. Maybe you're somebody who's like, that's not what I usually do. It's not what I'm comfortable with. It's not even what I relate to. Okay, So you could then spend the next bit of time just arguing with the book. That would be a waste of this experience. So don't do that. Instead, translate it. Translate it into something that will get you into that feeling of wow. What, for us, the word Adonai, which is being, becoming, it's our name for God, that is our way into wow. For you, another way into that might be remembering how small you are in the context of what is, like the universe, or like time, or like humanity, or like the ecosystem, or like love, or mystery, or you name it. You pick it, doesn't matter. The point is, you're getting out of that like rushing, running, busy, small mind way of being in the world, narrow, into the expanse. You're remembering where you are and what this actually is. That's what we're doing together. All right, we're going to turn next to page 194, and we're going to start with a morning blessing that comes from summer camp, and it's just basically a way of remembering our bodies and our souls and being grateful, getting into that feeling. And then we're going to go into the morning blessings, which are just done every morning, that are just reminding us the simple miracles of every day. And then we're going to go into Psalm 150, and when we get there, I'm going to give you more instructions.
This is a setting by Dan Nichols. I thank you for my life, body and soul. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. I'm perfect the way I am, and a little broken too. I will live each day as a gift I give to you. With me? I thank you for my life, body and soul. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. Help me realize I am beautiful and whole. I'm perfect the way I am and a little broken too. I'm perfect the way I am and a little broken too. I will live each day as a gift I give to you. I will live each day as a gift I give to you. Oh, oh, oh. A little higher. Oh, and higher still. Oh. Of 194. Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh chol basar mafli la'asot. Once again. Baruch atah Adonai רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן מסך ובינה להבחין בין יום ובין לילה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, פוקח עברים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, מתיר אסורים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, זוקף כפופים. 200. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who stretches the earth over the waters. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who strengthens our steps. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who clothes the naked, Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who gives strength to the weary. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. 202. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. She'asani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Yisrael with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Yisrael with splendor. We're now going to turn to page 218. And just to continue to surprise you, Rabbi Theodore, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, we're going to ask you, everybody in the sanctuary, to get up out of your seats. Except if you're in the front seats, we're going to ask you to stand right where you are. But everybody in the pews, we're going to ask you to come forward, to come all around us, on our left side, on our right side, right in front, out of the aisle. The most important thing is get out of the aisle so everybody can come forward. You can come all around, nice and close. And we're going to turn to Psalm 150 on page 218. And what we find there is just basically a psalm that's about hallelujah. This is a song of just saying like, wow, thank you, amazing, I'm grateful. And we're going to ask everybody to get all the way into it so we can sing it together.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Come over here to my left. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Keep moving forward, there's room. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You can come, yes. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, el bekorsho. Hallelujah, birkia uzo. Hallelujah, bigburotav. Hallelujah, kerokulo. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. The rabbi's jumping. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Beteka shofar. Hallelujah, beteka shofar. Hallelujah, benever bechino. Hallelujah, betofu macho. Hallelujah, beminim leugam. And now, hallelujah, hallelujah. Can't hear you, sing louder. Oh, we can do better than that, come on. Let them hear you on 7th Avenue. Betzilzele Shama, Hallelujah, Betzilzele Shama, Hallelujah, Betzilzele Trua, Kol Hanshama, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Everyone, hallelujah, the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Make the walls resound. Make the floor rumble. Make the rafters shake. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Whisper. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Snap your fingers. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Remember to breathe. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
All right, now we've built up some energy in here. We're going to use it. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Whoa,
stay standing, please, friends.
Now we're going to use that energy to make this the friendliest place you've ever been to in Brooklyn. So you got to find somebody you don't know, introduce yourself, wish them a Shabbat Shalom.
And stay standing. Stay where you are, too.
Thank you for being so friendly. All right, you're still going to stay where you are. Something really important is going to happen now. So, So you're not going back to your seats, you're staying where you are, you're staying where you are. So Sara and Lily are now going to receive a special gift from their families. Sarah's going to get hers from her parents and her brother, Christy and Dave and Ben. And Lily is going to get hers from her grandmother, Merle Griff. They chose this together on a trip to Israel. And what they're getting is a talit, or talis. This is a prayer shawl that Jews wear when we pray, particularly during the day. And it can be different colors. You're going to see different colors, fabrics. But what they all have in common is this. 4 of these. These are called tzitzit, and they're on the 4 corners of the garment. And they represent the mitzvot of Judaism. They represent the way of life of a Jewish person. So what's happening in this moment as they receive these is that they're saying, yes, I've worked really hard to get to this day. This is kind of like an ending of something. It's a culmination, but it's not an ending at all, because it's just the beginning of the rest of my life living as a Jewish person. They're going to come closer. They can be seen also by the Zoom people. And then they're going to say the blessing and put it on their shoulders.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher k'nishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehi b'tzitzit.
Amen.
And now we're going to turn toward Jerusalem, which is that way. And we're going to turn to page 224 and Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ולמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בהגהלה ובזמן קריב וימרו. אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמי. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. 226 ברכו את אדוני המבורך Page 228. If you're not becoming Benot Mitzvah this morning, you may be seated. 228. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzei or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. 228. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzei or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. One more time. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzei or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol.
Please join me in the middle of page 229 in the English. You are praised, who rolls out the rough, raw clay of the universe into delicate vessels of light. And from nothing at all, we could perceive in a world that
Has turned old, we shimmering new creation right before our eyes, made this moment just for us.
how much of life reveals your presence, how much Torah unfolds from each new flower, from each new wave that breaks upon the sea. You are praised, who forms from the clay that cloaks our lives, the delicate vessels which contain our light. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. page 230, we come to Ahava Rabbah. This is our prayer in gratitude for learning. And we pray this every Shabbat, every day. But on this particular Shabbat, I want to point out that tonight begins our holiday most dedicated to learning. Tonight is Shavuot, and tomorrow. And Shavuot is the day in which we reenact the moment at Mount Sinai, the moment of revelation, the moment when we saw differently, understood differently. And so this prayer is saying to God that the gift of learning, the gift of Torah, we received Torah at Mount Sinai, the gift of Torah is a gift of love. Because being confused in the world, not knowing how to live, how to do well, how to do right, how to handle the myriads of problems and complications of the world, that's painful. And whenever we gain any bit of insight or understanding or wisdom, that's a relief of that pain. It's a gift of love. The fact that we can always keep learning, that there's not an end point. We can just keep deepening and growing and expanding in our understanding. That is a gift of love. Today we give Torah to the next generation and celebrate all their learning, and also celebrate this is just the beginning, like it is for all of us, of a life of learning. Never stops. So we pray in gratitude, page 230.
אמרת עלינו בעבור אבותינו ואימותינו שבטחו בך בעבור אימותינו ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו ותלמדנו המרחם רחם עלינו ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה והערננו בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויפה לבבינו ויחדה וירא את שמך ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה בשובתך לה 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 near the bottom of 230. לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו כי אל פועל ישועות אתה בנו בחרת וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד 232 שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך 234 והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם המזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם כראשים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת page 240 מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא תהילות clap your hands, שירה חדשה, שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם, הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. We rise if we're able. צבאות ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופתחים נאומך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל ברוך אתה אדוני גר ישראל.
On page 242, we come to our tefillah, our amidah, our central standing set of prayers. And we begin these prayers by introducing ourselves to God in relationship to our ancestors, saying, you might not recognize me, but I'm the descendant of Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebecca and Jacob and Rachel and Leah, and I'm coming to you based on their merit. I might not have any, I don't know, but they had merit, so I'm coming to you based on their merit. And that form of introduction reminds us that whoever we are, we're made up of the people who came before us. We come from a long line of people who made us into who we are. And as Jews, we pray these words that were prayed by our ancestors for many, many generations, continuing as just a single link in this great chain of tradition and time. And we also know and hope that we are also the ancestors of a whole next set of generations who will stretch out into the future after us. And we hope, pray these same prayers and feel that the connectedness to us and those who came before us and those who came before them, and who then will pass on Torah to the generations after them as well. And so that's how we start this prayer. Then we talk about wanting to be like God in the way that God is always mindful of whoever's at the margins, whoever doesn't have power, whoever's in need, whoever's struggling. And then in the third prayer, we end that prayer by singing responsively. And so you're going to have a part here. Ledor vador, from generation to generation. May we be in this conversation from generation to generation. May we praise what's good in the world and what's holy from generation to generation. And so Cantor Bryce is going to chant Ledor vador, and we're going to want you to chant back to him Ledor vador from generation to generation. On this day, when we see this new generation rising up, they're going to be our teachers today on this day before Shavuot. They're going to be our teachers of Torah, this next generation. We remember that we're just all part of this great chain.
Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Adonai, 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 244. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sara, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, ve'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. 246. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיים את אימת הרב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיים מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה המתים. 248. לקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וכרזה אל זה ואמר קדוש, קדוש, קדוש אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו, אדוני, אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, מלכנו, מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם. אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. Hallelujah. Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha. Louder, ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha. Ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatecha nahaktish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu, mipidu lo yamush le'olam va'ed. Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha. Ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador, nagid God lecha. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue silently through page 261, using the words of these pages, the words of our hearts. When we've each finished our personal prayers, we may be seated. The middle of page 260. Adonai tzuri vegoali, Adonai tzuri vegoali. Repeat after me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my Redeemer. Iyu l'ratzon imrefi ve'egyon libi lefanecha. Adonai tzuri ve'goali, Adonai tzuri ve'goali.
In a few moments, we are going to come to Seder Kriyat HaTorah, the service for the reading of Torah. But first, we have some greetings and announcements from our president, John Horowitz.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to welcome you all here this morning, those of you joining here in person, as well as those of you who are joining us virtually. A special welcome to both Sara and Lily and your family and friends for joining us this morning, and Mazel Tov to both of you. I also want to say Mazel Tov to Alex and Caroline Greenberg and your family and friends who are here today on the naming of your son, Theodore. Mazel Tov. As always, I want to thank our clergy. Thank you, Rabbi Timona, Rabbi Colin, Cantor Breitzer, for leading us this morning. I want to thank Mark Flaxer and his staff who allow us to be here in community each and every weekend. I want to thank Karen Gerwin and Mara Sandroff, who are in the back supporting us in person. I'd like to thank Gabby Sabransky, who's providing sound and online support. And finally, I want to thank Adrienne and William Silver and Merle Griff, who are sponsoring Kiddush this morning in honor of Lily's Bar Mitzvah. Thank you. Two quick announcements. First, all members of CBE are in good standing are invited to attend our annual meeting of the membership, which is this Tuesday night on Zoom. It's the opportunity to reflect on the ways CBE is meaningful to us, to recap the events of the past year, receive some reports from lay leadership and staff, and continue the conversation about our plans for the future. Information about the annual meeting and everything else you want to know about CBE is available on our website, cbebk.org. In addition, tickets are selling fast for our annual spring fundraiser. This year, we're going to gather here in the ballroom on Tuesday, June 14th at 6:30 p.m. Please join us. It's going to be a fun evening. We're going to honor Rob and Kara Rach and have lively entertainment with the Flying Ivories. So we haven't done this in a few years, so for all of you who are members, please go online, purchase tickets. I promise you an enjoyable and good time. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, John. And I just want to say, you gotta run to get these tickets because it's going to be an amazing night. And we're celebrating Rob and Kara, who are pillars of our community, have given so much to make this place the vibrant, amazing place that it is. So CB members out there, get those tickets, come on to our spring fundraiser. And then the other thing I've got to say is that tonight, I mentioned tonight and tomorrow are Shavuot. Well, so it's traditional for Jews to study all night, the night of receiving Torah, to wake up in the morning and have the moment of revelation. And we actually do that here at CBE. And we do that with a lot of people. We host all the neighborhood minyanim and congregations and typically get about like 400 people and we have like dozens of workshops, like maybe some 40 or 30 something workshops, classes all night, and you should check it out. It's on our website. It's all night long. You can come at any point, leave at any point. There's a steady group there, like 2, 3, 4 a.m., like all the way through to the morning, and there's a service when the sun rises. So it's pretty amazing. And also there's cheesecake. So
I think there'll be lactate as well.
And lactate,
Yeah.
which is, if you're going to have a lot of dairy with the Jews, you got to have the lactate also. So we're thoughtful like that. Okay. It's time now for the Torah service, and we are going to need the following people. We're going to need Becca, Mike, Anna, Sam, and Amy DeSmit, and we're going to need Erica and Patrick Meyer, and Kelly Walsh, and Corey Cook. And those are all Sarah's cousins. And then we're going to need Sevi Sandler, Raquel, Jason, Nicole, Zach, and Jaden Kraus, Laura and Ethan Griff McMahon, Jill and Jim Rieger, and Daniel Levin are all going to come. Those are Lily's cousins. They're all going to come and help us open the ark. And then once the Torah is out and Sarah and Lily are holding the Torahs and they're going to make their way around the room, these people are going to follow them around the room. Anna DeSmit, and Sarah's cousin, and all of Sarah's friends who are here. Asher Griff, Kate and Caroline Smith, Lily's brother and cousins, and all of Lily's friends who are here. You don't have to move yet. If you're following them around the room, you're waiting until they've got the Torah and they're making their way around the room. If you're opening the ark, you are coming up here. See, I see you're ready. I'm so glad. And then I'm also going to need Sara and Lily, of course. And we're going to turn to page 362 and ask everyone to please rise.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kema'asecha. מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim eitiva v'irtzonecha et Zion, tivneh chomot Yerushalayim. Tivneh chomot Yerushalayim, ki v'echal levad batachnu, melech el ram v'nisa adon olamim. Page 364. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai mirushalayim. 366. Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shema.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Galu le'anayiti, unerom b'masher yachad.
Echad Adonai הגדולה והגבורה והתפארת והנצח והאור, כי יכול בשמיים ובארץ, כי יכול בשמיים ובארץ. לך אדוני הממלכה והמנשא לכל ראש. Clap your hands, רוממו, רוממו, רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. Keep clapping, רוממו, רוממו, רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו, כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. Get ready! על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. הללו, 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 הללויה, 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 הללו, הללויה, 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 הללו, הללויה.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We got some good spirit in this room, in this sanctuary this morning. It's nice to hear it and feel it. So we begin a new book of Torah today. We are going to be reading from the book of Numbers, Bamidbar, in the wilderness. We're starting at chapter 1, verse 1. And you can find that. So we mentioned before, there's one book we've been working with so far, called Mishkan Tefillah. Now we're ready to move to another book in your pews. It says on the cover, the Torah. That's how you know it's the Torah. And you're going to look at page 899. It's where you're going to find Numbers 1:1. We're going to be calling members of Sarah's and Lily's families up for the aliyot, the blessings that are said before and after Torah. And the first Torah chanter up today is Benjamin Gluck. And he is going to start, as I said, from 1:1. And we're going to invite Sarah's grandmother, aunt, and uncle for this aliyah, Norma Gluck, Amy, and Rob Eberhardt.
יעמדו על שבת המצווה הראשונה לעלייה לתורה. You're going to go on that side.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe b'midbar Sinai be'ohel moed ve'echad lakodesh hasheni v'shana hasheni letzeta me'eretz Mitzrayim lemor seu et rosh kol adat b'nei Yisrael lemishpakotam leveit abotam B'misbar Shemo Kol Zakar Legulgelotam.
Closing blessing. Closing blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chaye olam nata b'chatochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
And Yasher Koach. You can come around to this side. Now, next we're inviting David Gluck to come up to chant Torah, and we're going to have Kathy and Tom Walsh and Crystal Kendall come up for the aliyah.
יעמדו הקוראים שבת המצווה הראשונה לעלייה לתורה. David's continuing from verse 5, Numbers chapter 1, verse 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Hamborah.
Baruch Adonai Hamborah leolam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Hamborah. Adonai Hamborah. I'm sorry. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'na'atan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ve'ele shemot hanashim asher yamdu itechem leRuven Elitzor ben Shedeor L'Shimon, Shlomael, Ben Suri Shaddai, Lihuda, Nachshon ben Aminadav.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu et Torah emet v'shenat olam nata Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Shkoach.
We now invite you to move to this side as we call Sara forward as a bat mitzvah by her Hebrew name. Tamor, 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 B'chora bat mitzvah rishona, Liza, bar Eliyahu Eliezer, Christina, Lalia, la Torah, Chizki, ve'imtzi. Take the corner of your talit. You're going to touch where you're going to continue. Give it a kiss and hold on down here as you make the opening blessing. Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamborah. Baruch Adonai Hamborah Le'olam Vayed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu Torah et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah. Lehisachar Netanel ben Suar. Yisafulun Eliav ben Chelon. Livnei Yosef le'Ephraim Elishama ben Amihud. Limenashe Gamliel ben Piratsur. Lebinyamin Avidan ben Gidonin. Le'edan Achiezer ben Amishadai. Le'asher Pagiel ben Ochran. Le'egad Eliasaph ben Deuel. Le'Naftali Achira ben Einan. Eile Keru'ei Ha'edah Nesi'ei Matot Avotam Rashei Alafei Yisrael Hem. Vayifkach Moshe v'Aharon et ha'anashim ha'ele asher nikevu b'shemot ve'et kol ha'edah hikehilu be'echad lachodesh hasheni vayitjaldu al mishpechotam levet avotam b'mispar shemot miban esrim shana b'mahala legugilotam. Kasher tiva Adonai et Moshe ve'yifkedem b'midbar Sinai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yasher koach. Whenever anybody does something fabulous in a synagogue, we say, Yasher koach.
Yasher koach.
So we are going to pause for a moment. We always do this in the middle of our Torah service because the Torah represents life to our people. It represents strength and light and life. And so we think about, when it's in our midst, the people who need that, people who are ill or injured or suffering or afraid or hurting. We're going to sing Misha Berach, which is back in your prayer books on page 371. And we're going to pause in the middle, and I'm going to invite you to call out any names of people you're praying for, anybody who needs healing. It's a healing prayer.
Make our lives a blessing and us say, Amen.
We pray for the following people we name now.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Didn't the poet Emily Dickinson say, hope is a thing with feathers? We are going to continue now with our Torah reading and also a special blessing that Rabbi Colin's going to tell us about.
It is my great honor, and it is always our honor to add simcha to simcha. And so between these two beautiful Torah chanting Benot Mitzvah, we're going to tuck a very sweet little boy. And so we're going to invite forward Theodore. And Theo, if you could bring with you your parents, Caroline and Alex, that would be
chanting
wonderful.
Torah for them. So remember Joanne Feld, and she's going to be chanting Numbers chapter 1, verse 24.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvara. Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Livnei God, Toledotam lemishpechotam leveit avotam b'misbar shemot mi ben esrim shana v'mala kol yotzei tzava pekudehem lemate God chamisha ve'arba'im elef ושש מאות וחמישים. לבני יהודה תולדותם למשפחותם לבית אבותם במספר שמות מבין 20 שנה ומעלה כל יוצאי צבא פקודיהם למטה יהודה 74,600.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nota b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Come this way so that also our Zoom friends can see that punim. Not yours, though it's nice. There you go. Well, Theodore, we have come to give you a name on this morning. Nice kippah. Because your parents know that we are reading from Bamidbar. And so there are two things we're going to do as we send you. Bamidbar means into the wilderness. And when we send anyone as small as you, or really anyone, into the wilderness, there are two things we might want to do. We might want to welcome them into the covenant of our people so that they are never wandering alone. And we might want to give them their Hebrew names so they always know who they are, and so that the other people around them know who they are too. And so your parents are now going to say this blessing to welcome you into the covenant of our people.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Thank you, Theo. Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu Lehachniso bivritam Shel Avraham Avinu V'Sara Imenu.
Amen. We say amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of life, who makes us holy with your commandments and commands us to welcome this child into the covenant of Abraham and Sarah. And we say, Kashem shenichnas labrit, ken yikanes laTorah ulchupa ulmaasim tovim. You're so sleepy. And it means, just as you have been welcomed into the covenant, may you be welcomed into a life of learning and a life of, a life where your heart is so open that you can be loved and that you can love others, and a life of good deeds. And now it's time to give you your name, Theo. Are you ready? Look out at those people. You ready? Yes. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu kayem et hayeled hazeh la'aviv ul'imo vayikaresh shemo b'Yisrael Label ben Yitzchak, Avner, v'Caroline. Our God and God of our ancestors, sustain this child and let him be called among the people Israel, Label ben Yitzchak, Avner, v'Caroline. May his name come to be revered in the whole house of Israel. Though he is now small, great may he become. And now we get to learn a little bit about why you've chosen this name.
All right. I think I'm as nervous as I was on my bar mitzvah day. So we've named our son Theodore. This is my wife, Caroline. We've named him Theodore after I think he's helping me hold the mic, after my paternal grandfather, Leo Greenberg. His Hebrew name was Label, which is the Hebrew name we've given to Theodore. We'd like to think that they already have a lot in common. Towards the end of his life, when my grandfather, who passed away in early 2021 at the ripe age of 97, he was in a nursing home, and he used to get kicked out of bingo because he was babbling too loud. And Theo has become quite the babbler himself. And when we come to bagels and babies here at the congregation, I think Caroline thinks we're not allowed back because Theo talks too loud. But in thinking about what to say about my grandfather, I came across an essay I wrote about my grandfather and the Great Depression in school. I will certainly spare you all that, but there's one line at the end that really resonated with us. at the end of talking about what my grandfather went through during the Depression, he was, born in the 1920s and grew up during the Depression, and this is what I wrote at the very end. I said, my grandpa did not feel that he suffered during the Depression, which I think is such a beautiful concept and such a, great outlook when you face adversity, which we all do, on a global scale, or like the Depression, or, the pandemic, and then, we all face adversity in our daily lives. As parents, we faced a little adversity with Theo far sooner than we thought we'd have to. He was born early, and he spent a month in the NICU, and he, throughout it, we never felt like he suffered, and we've tried to have that outlook in our lives. So we're trying to learn from my grandfather, and I'm sure many others, and take that lesson with us. So thank you all so much for having us here today and sharing this special day with us.
Thank you. Stay here for one moment because we want to offer you some blessings. If you would just take one word of blessing and put it right up here in this space, on the wings of Shekhinah, as it were. If you could just toss some words of blessing right up here. Happiness, compassion, love, kindness, hope, and community. And if you would like to write them blessings virtually too, please do that. Now it's my honor to give you the priestly benediction, you little one. Yeah, here we go. Let's see, can we step that way just so your people can see them on the screen? Okay, Theo. Ready? Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you safe. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May God's light shine upon you and give you grace. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Theo, may God's eyes meet your beautiful eyes. And there, in that gaze, may you find the gift of shlemut, of wholeness, always being your whole self, always. And the gift of shalom, the gift of peace. We say together, Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, shehecheyanu v'kimanu v'higiyanu, b'zman hazeh.
Mazel tov. We now are going to invite Isaac Cohen to come up and chant some Torah. And we're going to invite Lily's grandparents for the Aliyah. We're turning toward Lily's family now for the next 3 Aliyot. Merle Griff and Adrian and William Silver.
We're moving forward in our Parsha, Rabbi Tzimoner. Is that right?
We are. Tell us what page, where are we going?
We are on Numbers chapter 3, verse 1 in the Torah commentary.
905?
Sure.
That's what I'm thinking it is. It's 905.
Yeah. So first they're going to sit.
Yes. Baruch et Adonai Hamavarach. Baruch Adonai Hamavarach Li'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu michol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Ve'ele toldot Aharon u'Moshe beyom diber Adonai et Moshe behar Sinai. Ve'ele Shemot b'nei Aharon habechor Nadav va'avihu Elazar ve'itamar. Ele Shemot b'nei Aharon hakohanim hameshuchim asher milei adam lechahen. Vayamot Nadav va'avihu lifnei Adonai behakrivam esh sarav lifnei Adonai b'midbar Sinai uvanim lo hayu lahem vayhahen Elazar v'itamar al penei Aharon Avihem.
Together? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tzukenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. So Yesher Koach, and I want to say Yesher Koach to Isaac and to Joanne. We love when our members just come to read Torah, and especially we love when our teens come back after their B'nai Mitzvah. We have a whole plan of wanting our teens to chant Torah a couple times after their B'nai Mitzvah, so it becomes
the last time he chanted those verses for his bar mitzvah last year, he was about 6 inches shorter.
I think that's about right.
Our perspective changes each and every year we return to this.
So true. And now we invite Lily to come forward to chant Torah. And for this aliyah, we invite her parents, her brother, her aunts, her uncles, and her cousins, Elizabeth Silver, Adam and Asher Griff, Richard Griff, Audrey Henry, and Daniel Levin, Catherine, Kate, and Caroline Smith, and James Silver.
יעמדו כל כלים ganze משפחה שבת מצווה שנית לעלייה לתורה.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach, Adonai Hamorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Hakrev et matei Levi, v'ha'amadeta oto lifnei Aharon hakohen, v'shiretu oto, v'shameru et mishmarto, ve'et mishmeret kol ha'eda lifnei ohel moed, Lavod et avodat hamishkan, v'shameru et kol kelei ohel moed, ve'et mishmeret b'nei Yisrael, la'avod et avodat hamishkan, v'natatat et haleviim la'aharon ulanav, Netunim hema lo me'et b'nei Yisrael, ve'et Aharon ve'et banav tivkod v'shameru et kehunatam ve'hazar hakarev yumat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We're going to invite everyone to stay right here as we call Lily to Torah as a bat mitzvah by her Hebrew name. After I chant it, she'll take the corner of her talit and touch the scroll where she'll continue before making the opening blessing. Tamor, 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 abukura bat mitzvah shenit, Leah pesha, barcha v'rachel v'avraham, l'aliyah laTorah, chizki v'imtzi.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvara. Baruch Adonai Hamvara le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, ve'ani Hine lakachti et haleviim mitoch b'nei Yisrael tahat kol bechor peterechem mi b'nei Yisrael v'hayu li haleviim ki li kol bechor b'yom hakoti kol bechor be'eretz Mitzrayim Jashkili kol bechor beYisrael me'adam ad bema liu ani Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach.
Yasher koach. You can all be seated. You can all make your way to your seats. Yasher koach. We are ready to lift and dress our Torah. We're going to invite up Sarah's cousins and Lily's grandparents. So maybe they're going to come right back. So Sarah's cousins, Nancy and Randy Friedman, and Randy's also going to be our Magbia. He's also going to lift the Torah. And Adrian and William Silver are also invited back up to help dress the Torah. And we ask everyone to please rise. Though I just called like 4 names, and there's one person. Are there more people coming? I need Randy Friedman. There you go. Is that you? You're not? Yes, perfect.
Page 370. Vesot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Get ready to clap. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah. Tziva lanu Orasha keidat Yaakov, Orasha keidat Yaakov, Orasha keidat Yaakov, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, alanai la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya 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 alanai la 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 ya la 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 ya la la. Please be seated.
All right.
Sarah and Lily, we need you to come back up.
That's right. We need Sarah and Lily. Because what happens on a Shabbat morning is we hear the original words of the Torah. We hear the Torah chanted. We get to see exactly what the Torah says. And then what we do is we watch the Torah be applied in time. So the next thing we do is we hear the words of Haftarah, which are passages from the prophets that are linked to the Torah portion. Usually there's some kind of connective theme or word or idea. So you might want to look and see if you can figure out why this Haftarah for this parsha. And we're going to be reading from the prophet Hosea, chapter 2, starting at verse 1. And that's going to be on page 917 in your Torah commentaries. So we'll see the words of Torah applied in time by a prophet. And then we're going to hear the words of Torah taught to us by our teachers this morning, by our Torah teachers this morning, Lily and Sarah. But first, they're going to chant the opening blessing for Haftarah. They're going to chant from Hosea. And they're going to chant the closing blessing. And then you are receiving right now some individually wrapped, crinkly, crinkly, crinkly little candies. And you can crinkle them, but actually what I prefer is if you didn't crinkle them, and if you just held them. And then they're not for eating right now. They're going to be for making a very gentle shower of sweetness upon our Benot Mitzvah. So if you're someone who's very good at throwing hard, I see you warming up your shoulder, Joshua. That's not what this moment is. You're going to lob it like this. This is the shape you're aiming for, like that. It's gentle, it's sweet, it's lovely. And elsewhere, like in a ball field, you can be really, really a great thrower, and we're so proud of you. But that is not what this is. Okay, so we're going to hear Haftarah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar yimim tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai haboher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'nbiei ha'emet v'tzedek v'haya mispar b'nei Yisrael kehol hayam asher lo yimad velo yisafer v'haya bimekom asher ya'amer lahem lo ami atem ya'amer lahem b'nei el hai v'nikbetzu b'nei Yehuda u'b'nei Yisrael yachdav v'samu lachem Rosh Echad ve'alu min ha'aretz ki gadol yom Yisrael imaru la'achehem ami ve'la'achoteihem ruhama
Becharti lachem berit beyom hahu im chayat hasadeh ve'im ov hashamayim ve'remes ha'adama ve'keshet ve'cherev u'milchama eshbor min ha'aretz ve'hishkavtim lavetach eratzti li le'olam eratzti li betzedek u'mishpat u'vechesed u'rachamim ve'eratzti li be'emunah ve'yada'at et Adonai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam sur kol ha'olamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer ve'oseh ha'medaber u'mekayim shekol devarav emet v'tzedek al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nevi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likadusha v'limenucha lehavod u'leferet al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim la u'mevarchim otav Yisbarach Shimcha b'fi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat
Amen. Seman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, seman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, seman tov, mazel tov, seman tov, Yehenanu. Now pick it all up. Yehenanu, Yehenanu, Lecho Yisrael. Every last piece. Yehenanu, Yehenanu, Lecho Yisrael. Yehenanu, Yehenanu, Lecho Yisrael. Yehenanu, Yehenanu, Lecho Yisrael. Seman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, seman tov, mazel tov, seman tov, mazel tov, seman tov, Yehenanu. Some of you sort of looked like the bird earlier, swooping away.
All right. Now, I mentioned that we were hearing Torah move through time. And what we do with the Torah as Jews is we don't just read it on its surface. We dig. We look inside. We turn it around and try to find what's underneath the surface. What is it really saying to us now? How do we understand its message, its voice in our time? What do we need to hear? And so when young people become B'nai Mitzvah, it's this beautiful thing because we get to have fresh eyes, a fresh perspective, looking inside the Torah and telling us what they see. So we're going to hear from Sara and we're going to hear from Lily. We're going to start with Sara. And so Sara, come on up. And also, they have been students of ours their whole lives. And today they become our teachers. And that's something really important. So let's all listen.
Shabbat Shalom. When I first figured out that my parsha was the census and the counting of the Jewish people, I can't lie to you, I was sort of disappointed. I thought to myself, what's so interesting about the census? It's just God's counting of the Jewish people. But I read closer into it and questioned things like the trope of the reading, why people did certain jobs, who gets to have the great jobs, who gets the difficult ones, and why. The trope is, by definition, a millennia-old system of music symbols that determines how each word in the Torah is recited. Each phrase or sentence has a set way it's supposed to be read. And I noticed that there's a repeating trope in my Torah portion that I know is called Zakef Gadol, but I didn't know why it was there for certain lines. Since I was wondering about the trope, I thought the best person to ask was Cantor Breitzer. Cantor Breitzer told me about Zakef Gadol, which he said can be loosely translated as big stand-up, an applause of sorts. He also said the effect can be heard in the ascending syncopated melody of the trope, which you previously heard when you listened to me chant Torah. Zakef Gadol. But I soon realized that even though it's often repeated, not all of the tribes get a Zakef Gadol, or a big stand-up, only certain tribes, like Zebulun, Ephraim, Manasseh, Dan, Asher, and Gad. I asked myself, why? I wondered what these tribes did to get such a stand-up, such a special trope. Another thing I thought was strange is that the 4 oldest brothers' tribes weren't getting the Zakef Gadol. Mostly in history, the oldest brothers especially are always praised out of other children. So why didn't Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Judah get the special stand-up? The oldest brother, Reuben, in other parts of the Torah, made his father angry because he got with his father's concubine. The 4th oldest brother, Judah, was the one who had the idea to sell the favorite child, Joseph, into slavery. So there are some possible reasons for those two, but I was puzzled by Shimon and Levi. While diving deeper into this, I found a story about one possible reason why Shimon and Levi didn't get a stand-up. It turns out they brutally murdered a whole town. According to Rachel Fabriez in an article on myjewishlearning.com, the Levites were the only tribe that got a specific job. They were turned into priests. They worked for the tabernacle. They didn't get any land, which I sort of see as punishment for how their ancestor, Levi, murdered a whole town. Because in that time, land is how you show your wealth. The Levites didn't get any land, but had to do their job. But maybe they shared the same kind of violent tendencies as their ancestor Levi, and God gave them that job to let out their anger. They make sacrifices. But on the other hand, Shimon, even though he also murdered the town with his brother Levi, his descendants don't get a tough job, and they get land just like everyone else, but don't get a Zakef Gadol, which puzzled me. Why is he not punished? How is that fair? That got me thinking about bigger questions about equality and fairness in our justice system and legal system, how things aren't always fair. Just like Shimon and Levi, there are many instances in the legal system where the punishment or the decision doesn't fit. Like currently, the draft of the Supreme Court's new abortion decision means that if someone tries to get an abortion, it could be illegal, depending on the state. I don't know about anyone else, but I found this quite disturbing. How someone higher than yourself has a choice about what you do with your own body? How does that seem fair? Questions of fairness and justice can be really complicated. On the one hand, I do understand that Levi and Shimon's actions were terrible by murdering the whole town, but I also learned that they had a reason, or at least a justification. Shimon and Levi were protecting or avenging their sister Dinah, who was raped by a man in the town. The Torah doesn't tell her story like it doesn't tell many other women's stories, so we have no way of knowing exactly what happened to her, like if she got pregnant or not. Whether Shimon and Levi's actions were justified or not, like whether or not it's okay to take vengeance on an entire town because someone there raped your sister, is not a question we're going to solve here. But some things seem more clear to me, like Dinah's side of the story. We never hear her whole story, but we know that something really bad happened to her, and she didn't have a choice. And if she did get pregnant back in those days, she probably wouldn't have had a choice either. If this draft ends up being the Supreme Court's final decision, Women in a lot of states will lose the right to choose what to do with their own bodies, and that doesn't seem fair to me. I think it doesn't seem like that's what justice should be, thousands of years after Dina. I think about my generation and how this change in the law could affect us. We may not be able to have a choice, like Dina all those years ago. It's so scary to me that this legal decision could affect me or women around me. And on this day, as I become a Jewish woman, I'm so scared this could become our future. As I venture into adulthood, I'd like to be a part of a society that truly has liberty and justice for all. But while I'm scared, I also believe that our generation can bring change, and as Dr. Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Those words deserve a sakef gadol.
Yasher koach, Sara. I'm looking forward to responding to you soon, but first we get to hear from Lily.
Shabbat Shalom. When I first read my Parsha, I was unsure about what I could say. After all, it is literally a census. The basics of the census are which tribe has what role, how many people are designated to that role, and how that role is meant to be performed. As I thought more about the purpose of a census and its importance, I began to see an underlying message that this Parsha also communicates. This Parsha shows the needs of the community and its foundations. More than counting, a census can be a way to keep track of communities, verify they are functioning, and provide information on how to improve them. In Tractate Sanhedrin of Talmud, written around the 5th century, it states there are 10 roles needed for a Torah scholar to be part of a community. In this instance, a community refers to a city or town. There needs to be a Beit Din, court of law, a tzedakah, charity, a synagogue, a mikveh, which is a bathhouse, a doctor, a bathroom, a craftsperson, a bloodletter. In modern times, this would be a pharmacist, and a teacher of children. For me, these roles fell into 3 main categories: spiritual and occupational needs for the individual. These are the synagogue, craftsperson, and the bathhouse. The bathhouse was used as a social event where people would go and clean themselves together. Health needs, second, is health needs for the individual: a bathroom, a doctor, and a bloodletter. Finally, the 3rd role is to ensure the existence of the community: tzedakah, to help those in need, because the community can only function with everyone's help; a Beit Din, which is a court of law, to keep the community safe and fair; and a teacher of children, to continue the practices of the community for the future. The list of required roles shows that equal priority must be given to both the individual and to the community. All of these roles are meant to make sure that the community is not only suitable to live in, but can also survive as a whole. This brings up the question of what happens to us when something goes wrong in our community. Something going wrong could be an act of disobedience by someone in the community, where a person would face trial for their actions. It could also be outsiders who attacked, in which case the community could retaliate or defend itself. Or it could be indifference towards the community. Unlike the others, indifference can't as obviously be dealt with. If the person being indifferent doesn't wish to stop, punishment wouldn't change anything and would only worsen the situation. You can't defend against them because there's nothing to defend against. Dealing with indifference has to be initiated by the individual. My experience of COVID was one of deep indifference. When COVID began, we all had to go online. I felt a huge impact on my ability to connect with others in my community. I became disconnected from those I was close with, and that made me indifferent to my responsibilities as a family member and friend. The communities I was a part of also fell apart when people were too tired and isolated to support them, myself included, which makes sense with how lonely many of us felt. Now, We are able to see each other the way we used to, but we aren't connected in the same way we were before. Rebuilding the community can't be done by just being there. It helps, but it's not enough. You need something to care about, something that you need to put effort into with other people. That's what a community does for you. In my parsha, the Israelites can support one another because they have specific roles for taking care of the tabernacle, the thing that they care about and the foundation of their culture. In order for us to heal from COVID, we need to find things we can come together around that we all care about. And the way to combat indifference is to find something we can all care about and put effort into again. For me, it was preparing for my bat mitzvah. That meant going to synagogue on Saturdays, studying my parsha, learning my verses, and my tikkun olam in Hebrew school, which was reproductive health, helped me to reconnect. Because this work was important to me and because others were happy to guide me. Everyone needs to find something for themselves because it has to be about you and something you care about. Some of you may take a long time to find something of enough importance. Others may have already done it. The important part is that the thing you care about allows you to interact with the people who will become your community and are in your community. Shabbat Shalom.
Yasher Koach, Lily, both of you gave us so much to think about. Both of you dug deep into your parsha. You were both talking about a census, and look what you did. You did exactly what the best sages and darshanim have done, Torah interpreters have done throughout time, was to make connections, to consider what might be a layer underneath the surface, to help us see what about this speaks to us. You were creative in the way you did this. Sara, by analyzing the trope, Zakef Kadol, and the misdeeds of the elder brothers, leading to considering Dina, to women's rights, to abortion, you made so many points of connection, from a trope mark to a family dynamic, to questions of punishment, right or wrong, to feminism, to our own ability to have decision-making over our own bodies, and to how you have fear about what will happen to you as a young woman. And Lily, you saw the census as a way of taking care of the needs of the community. Analyzing the text from Masechet Sanhedrin, you saw the balancing of the needs of the individual and the needs of the community, and considered how we can best respond when people become indifferent in a community or to a community, as you experienced during COVID. These Devrei Torah were not only creative, but they also were so insightful. Your writing, Lily, got me thinking about all the ways that we've been witnessing indifference to the community in our country, in our society, and a feeling I think many people are having that there's an unraveling of the fabric of community in this time, an unraveling of the feeling of shared purpose, an unraveling of a feeling of shared or common responsibility and of caring for one another. The mass shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde have brought our attention back to the devastating epidemic of mass shootings, mostly by men who feel alienated, disconnected from the community, whether because of racism and white nationalist ideology, or because of a grievance of one kind or another, or because of a hurt they're experiencing. They've often turned on the women in their lives before they go on a shooting rampage. We don't all agree in this country about how to stop these terrible tragedies, though many of us feel that we need responsible limitations on who can get their hands on guns and what kind. But something is very wrong that we have all of these, really, it's mostly men, who want to go kill masses of random people. If there was any indicator of the unraveling of the social fabric, this is one. There are so many places that we're seeing this beyond mass shootings. Lily, you talked about loneliness, and we're seeing epidemic levels of loneliness and isolation among young people and among people of all ages. exacerbated by the pandemic, surely, but predating it, and with no sign of abating. And in all of the culture wars, we see this feeling of indifference on both sides. People feeling like no one in this country cares about them. We see it in some of the language of the insurrectionists and the white supremacists when they chant, "Jews will not replace us." As crazy as that is, as anti-Semitic as that is, it indicates the feeling of being dispensable, the feeling of others not wanting you to be here. Red state people describe feeling forgotten. They're called flyover states, as if they don't matter. And I'm sure it seems that blue state people don't care about them at all. On the other hand, blue state people feel like red state people don't care about them. As you talked about, Sara, the legislation we see coming out about abortion, the Supreme Court seems to be a decision that's in formation, and also the legislation we see in states across the country, where it doesn't matter if the pregnant person is very young or if she was raped or if she's just one day pregnant. It feels like the lawmakers and activists pushing these kinds of bills don't care about what happens to women at all. Same with legislation against transgender kids or LGBT people. Same with the issue about the teaching of the history of slavery and lynching and Jim Crow, or the banning of books on those topics. The people promoting these policies feel like those teachings are part of a campaign to make them into the bad guys and to dismiss them. But on the other side, what does the slogan Black Lives Matter mean, other than it's a response to feeling like you don't count, like no one cares whether you live or die? We have a whole lot of people in this country who feel like nobody cares about them, like there's no community, like there's no belonging, like there's just indifference everywhere. And a lot of people are feeling low and defeated and diminished because of it. This week's parashah and a particular Hasidic commentary on it actually provide a beautiful response to this condition. At the peshat, or surface level, we have a census, as has been discussed, which is about the idea that every person counts. Further, Me'or Einayim, a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov, who lived in Chernobyl in Ukraine, by the way, says that the verses at the beginning of our portion teach us that the Shekhinah, which is God's indwelling presence, needs all of the people in order to be present. None of them may be missing, he says. He notes that the verse tells us that the people must be counted by name. A person's name is his soul. The letters of your name are your root and your vitality, he says. The main point is that no soul may be missing or overlooked. Even, he says, fallen souls, even wicked people may not be lost. God forbid, he says. That's why God says to Moses, Se'u et rosh kol ha'adat. Lift up every head of the whole community. He says they need to be uplifted and raised high, even though they have fallen. So let me just be clear. The Hebrew that we translate as count every person, it actually literally says lift up every head. And also they're supposed to be counted according to their families, the text says, according to their parents' households. And Me'or Einayim says of this, according to their supernal roots, for we're part of our ancestors. And if a person isn't able to make repair in this lifetime, Me'or Einayim says, that's why the text uses the word golgolet the next time it talks about their heads. It's a hint about, he says, reincarnation, hitgalgalut. If they're unable to repair themselves in this life, he says, they'll be reincarnated several times until they're repaired. But why should they need to be reborn, he asks? Better that they repair their deeds the first time around. Now, many people don't know that reincarnation is included in the teachings of Judaism. It is. That's not our point today. But what Me'or Einayim is saying here is that everyone counts. Everyone matters. We give up on no one, no matter how they behave. The job of a leader in the community is to lift up people's heads, to raise them up, to make sure they feel seen and known and cared about. to call them by name, to call them by the name of their ancestors and their families and their households, to say, your life matters. Your roots matter. Your culture matters. I see you. You have a place here. And even if you've become totally indifferent, even if you've become wicked, even if you feel like you don't care about anyone else, we still care about you. You belong here. We are facing many problems right now in our society, and many solutions are necessary, and it can feel overwhelming. But underneath almost all of them is a feeling that maybe no one cares about us, that maybe we don't care about each other, that maybe there's no community at all, that maybe it's all falling apart. That's why both of your prescriptions, Sara and Lily, are exactly right. What the world needs now is people who care, people who get involved. And the way to start caring is to get involved with the people closest to you, the people in your community, about projects or ideas or goals that matter to you, whether that's reproductive health, which both of you spoke about, or that's about the community itself. To roll up your sleeves, to reach out, to be the first one who says, I care. I see you. You matter. I'm here for you. We, together, can do something about this. We, together, can make a difference. Here at CBE, we are so lucky to have so many opportunities for exactly that kind of belonging. We even have a small groups program where any member who has an idea for a small group that they want to be part of can get help starting one. We have groups that bake challah together, garden, play mahjong. We have groups that are Shoah survivors, who are grandparents, who speak Hebrew together, who are queer parents, who walk in nature together. And we have our many Tikkun Alliance social justice groups, and our many classes of learners, and our Friday night or Shabbat morning regulars, some of whom are here, and our committees, and our Yahad classes. And we have Chesed, which is all about people taking care of each other and showing up and helping everyone feel like they're not alone. We all need places where we belong. And we all need to feel that our community and our society cares about us. And we all can contribute meaningfully to this core need by doing things, activist things, service things, volunteer things that show we care, so that every head is lifted up, so that everyone is counted. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Now I'm going to invite Lily and Sara to join me at the Ark as we return the Torah, and I ask everyone to please rise.
Page 374. Ki lekach tov natati lachem torati al tazovu etz chaim Yamachazikim ba v'tomechea me'ushar derachea darchei Noah v'chol netivotea Shalom Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu page 586 at the bottom, Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. 589, clap your hands. Adonai Eloheinu, כן נקבל לך, כן נקבל לך, כן נקבל לך, אדוני אלוהינו. לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך, ותקן עולם. לראות מהרה בתפארת עוזך, במלכות שדי, שדי. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
We always conclude our time together by pulling close our memories of the people we love whom we've lost. And on this special day and their families, Lily's family is thinking about her grandfather, Franklin Griff. And Sarah's family is thinking about her grandparents, Brian Kendall and Alan Gluck, and her great-grandparents, Joyce and Howie Scheit, and her aunt and cousins, Doris Stahl, Jason Scheit, and Tyler Kendall. If you're someone who is in the first week since the death of someone you love, if you're in Shiva, I invite you to rise and tell us who you're remembering. If you're in Shloshim in the first 30 days since the death of someone you love, I invite you to rise and tell us who you're remembering. And if you're in Shana in the first year since the death of someone you love, I invite you to rise and tell us who you're remembering. And if this is a yahrzeit for you, the anniversary of a death, I invite you to rise and tell us who you're remembering. And ask everyone to please rise in company with our mourners as we remember these recent losses in our congregational community. Ilya Shleichov, father of Konstantin Breitman, father-in-law of Julia Breitman, and grandfather of Matthew and Ethan. Florian Matos, father of Peggy Levinson, father-in-law of Richard Levinson, grandfather of Nicole and Danielle. And these yahrzeits, Robert Aaron, Lily Brooks, Stephen Kaplan, Joe Clayton, Morris Cohen, Daniel Dobro, Faye Dobro Kaufman, Molly Dorff, Barbara Duffy, Andrea Epstein, Lenore Feinberg, Charles Garrett, Ken Gershon, Ernest Geraldi, Josephine Glassheim, Rachel Goldberg, Annette Goldberg, Maurice Goldberg, Claire Goldblum, Alan Goldner, Ruth Green, Jack Grinthal, Karen Harbour, Gabriel Herseg, Judith Hertz, Philip Hirschfield, Walter Honig, Tom Hutchison, Lazar Iskovich, Eileen Kaufman, Jeanette Klamberg, Abraham Coppell, Bodie Kaufman, Frida Kraus, Dorothy Levitt, Bertha Levy, Mary Lawrence, Louis Malin, Louis Mandelkorn, Claire May, Abraham Miller, Mary Moskowitz, Max Muchnick, Sophie Prager, Janet Lippin-Protter, Dora Rabinowitz, Earl Roberts, Babette Rosenfeld, James Allen Runsdorf, Addie Sargent, Mary Shine, Bernard Shine, David Shine, Joseph Sirksner, Maurice Schur, Leonard Sussman, Henry Teitelbaum, Grace Whiteman, David Goldberg, Joseph Zink. Holding them all together, we say Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be a blessing. As we turn to the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon of yomechon of chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei t'kudesha brichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. May the one who makes peace in the high places make peace for all who mourn. And we say together, Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom, Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru, Amen. Yalalai, let's hear it. Go. Yalalai. Yalalala, ya 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 ya. Yalalala, yalalala, v'imru, Amen. V'imru, Amen.
Mazel tov to Lily and to Sara and to your family and friends. We're going to continue with Kiddush over here, and then eventually guests attending the Gluck family celebration are going to head over to the social hall. We wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד כי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בדורם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני השמיים ואת הארץ, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני השמיים ואת הארץ, וישמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בדורם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת